What's up? I'm at Barnes and Noble at Colony Center, right? And I found a book. I was just over there real quick in the current events section, right? And I found something that I could read in one quick shot because it's small enough. You know what I mean? I'm not looking to read like an encyclopedia, so. But it's this. It was thin, so that's why I picked it. You know, the real Charlie Kirk, our greatest evangelist for American liberty. He's a martyr now for American freedom. By Dick Morris, right? I'm gonna just read this real quick. I'm gonna break the binding. I have to pay for it. Not crease it. The introduction is the voice that changed history will change the future. Charlie Kirk was not just a political activist, he was a movement, a force of nature, and in many ways a prophet for our time. His voice was one of reason, conviction, and clarity in an age of noise, fear, and manipulation. Like Socrates in ancient Athens, Charlie deployed questions, logic, and relentless clarity to expose falsehood and hypocrisy. And like Jesus Christ, Gandhi, and Martin Luther King Jr., Charlie's life was cut short, yet his death only magnified his influence. Tertullian once wrote, "The blood of martyrs is the seed of the church." So too with Charlie Kirk. His martyrdom has become the seed of a movement that will shape America for generations to come. Charlie's greatest impact came in the 2024 election, a contest that reshaped the course of American history. Donald Trump, written off by elites and establishment forces, stormed back to defeat Kamala Harris. I was an advisor to President Trump for his comeback campaign in 2024. I can tell you that at the center of this turnaround was the tireless work of Charlie Kirk. His organizing, his connection with young people, his relentless defense of Judeo-Christian values all helped spark a political earthquake, the 2024 youth earthquake. For decades, Democrats had claimed young voters as their own, but in 2024, something unprecedented happened. A surge of support among young Americans went to Trump, and the credit belongs to Charlie Kirk. Through Turning Point USA, his media presence, and his sheer personal energy, Charlie made conservatism not only acceptable, but exciting to a new generation. He spoke directly to their frustrations, the cancel culture that suffocated free thought, the economic burdens of student debt, and the hollow promises of woke ideology. Charlie showed them that conservatism was not a relic of the past, but a vibrant philosophy rooted in truth, freedom, and opportunity. His ability to reach young Americans on campuses, online, and in their communities was decisive. The election results for 2024 showed that the same younger voters, ages 18 to 30, that overwhelmingly supported Joe Biden in 2020 moved dramatically to favor Donald Trump. Trump would capture roughly 46% of the youth vote compared to just 36% in 2020, according to AP VoteCast survey. And among men under 30, the shift was especially pronounced. In 2024, young men favored Trump by an 11-point margin, 54% to 43%, a dramatic swing from 2020 when many young men had leaned toward Biden. That swing of young voters to Trump in 2024 was the single most underreported story of the election. Without it, Trump would not have returned to the White House. Charlie made it happen. Evangelicals, Latinos, and the defense of life. But Charlie's work was not limited to youth. He forged a powerful alliance between evangelicals and Latino voters, a coalition that proved fatal to the Democrats' chances. For years, the left assumed Latinos would be their permanent base. But Charlie understood their values, faith, family, and life. He recognized their anger at the cultural radicalism that had overtaken the Democratic Party. Charlie spoke directly to these concerns. He reminded evangelicals and Latinos alike that the sanctity of life was not negotiable. He championed the unborn. He defended family values. He stood against the tide of transgender ideology, teaching that biology is not bigotry, and that protecting children from irreversible harm is not fascism but common sense. This message resonated deeply. Latino voters, Catholic, Protestant, evangelical, saw in Charlie a leader who understood their concerns, and evangelicals found in him a champion unafraid to fight the battles too many Republicans had abandoned. Charlie's work benefited Donald Trump. In 2020, exit polling showed Joe Biden winning about 65% of the Latino vote to Trump's 38%. But in 2024, Trump's share of Latinos rose significantly, with some polls showing 48%. No modern Republican presidential candidate had pulled this level of support from Latino voters. The result, a new GOP coalition that delivered the decisive blow to the Democrats in 2024. A nuclear explosion in history. Charlie lived only a relatively short life, but his impact was like a nuclear explosion in history. Few individuals have so transformed the political landscape in so brief a time. Yet both the left and the Republican establishment recognized the danger he posed to their stranglehold on power. The left despised him because he exposed their hypocrisy, dismantled their narratives, and won over their voters. Establishment Republicans feared him because he proved that real conservatism rooted in the culture of truth, not watered-down compromise, could win. It was no accident that Fox News banned him, just as they had tried to silence other strong Trump supporters after the 2020 election. They hoped to sideline Charlie and protect their brand of controlled opposition. But Charlie refused to be silenced. With the help of Newsmax, his radio program, his podcast, and his social media reach, Charlie broke through the media blockade. He showed the nation that the old gatekeepers could be bypassed and defeated. Tragically, Charlie's enemies determined that silencing his words was not enough. Like the martyrs before him, Charlie's death sparked a movement. His blood became the seed of a new conservative awakening. Just as Socrates was forced to drink hemlock and Jesus was nailed to the cross, Charlie too was cut down with a gunshot to his head. His public assassination shocked the nation, but in death he became even greater than in life. The left had spent years stoking fear, convincing vulnerable communities that conservatives were fascists out to destroy them. They whipped the transgender movement into a frenzy, portraying Charlie as an existential threat simply because he defended women's sports, opposed the mutilation of children, and stood for biological truth. When his assassin pulled the trigger, the left celebrated, revealing the very hatred Charlie had warned against. But the result was not the silencing of his message, quite the opposite. Like the martyrs before him, Charlie's death sparked a movement. His blood became the seed of a new conservative awakening, global movement of faith and freedom. The aftermath of Charlie's death revealed the depth of his impact. Young people, once skeptical of politics, rallied to his cause. Evangelicals redoubled their commitment to cultural engagement. Law-abiding Americans, tired of lawless censorship and corruption, found new courage in Charlie's example. And beyond America, Charlie's influence spread. His words, his vision, and his example ignited believers across the globe. Just as the message of Jesus spread through apostles and the legacy of Gandhi inspired movements of freedom worldwide, Charlie's message continues to echo far beyond our shores. His death became not an end, but a beginning, a resurrection of purpose for millions. Charlie Kirk Playbook. Charlie's legacy is not only spiritual, but also practical. He provided the Republican Party with a political playbook for years to come. That playbook rests on two pillars. Stay consistently conservative on economic policy. Resist the temptations of big government, runaway spending, and fiscal irresponsibility. Uphold free markets, limited government, and economic opportunity. 2. Engage fully in the culture war. Refuse to surrender the issues of life, family, faith, and freedom. Stand on Judeo-Christian values. Defend the unborn and reject the radical left's assault on identity, biology, and truth. This two-part formula is the roadmap to long-term conservative victory. Charlie proved in 2024, and his legacy ensures it will endure. Both the left and the Republican establishment tried to stop Charlie, but neither succeeded. They mocked him, banned him, censored him, and ultimately killed him, yet in each case, their efforts backfired. Fox News ban only highlighted the courage of networks like Newsmax, who gave him a platform. Social media censorship only made his words spread faster through alternative channels, and his assassination only magnified his influence, transforming him into a martyr whose name will be remembered alongside the greatest leaders of history. Charlie Kirk taught us that truth cannot be silenced. Charlie Kirk has died, but Charlie Kirk's message is risen. His life was brief, but his impact eternal. He gave young people courage. He gave evangelicals and Latinos a voice, and he gave conservatives a roadmap for victory. In the years to come, his influence will only grow, like Jesus, like Socrates, like Martin Luther King Jr. Charlie's work will continue to bear fruit long after his death. His voice will echo through history, reminding us that faith, freedom, and truth can never be destroyed. And so, as we reflect on his life and his legacy, we know this: Charlie Kirk is coming again, through the movement he inspired, through the millions of awakened, and through the timeless truths he lived and died for. The day the megaphone fell silent. It was a clear Wednesday morning on September 10th, 2025, when the news broke. Charlie Kirk, conservative leader, commentator, and founder of Turning Point USA, had died suddenly. The headlines cascaded across every news app and television trireme in the nation within minutes. Some reports emphasized the absurdness, others the irony that a man who made a career out of telling America to wake up had slipped without warning into the eternal sleep. For millions of his followers, the shock was not only personal, it was political. It was also a religious movement for many. First and foremost, Kirk was a Christian. He was also a prominent Christian leader on par with evangelicals, and who have had an impact on American life. In the polarized theater of American politics, Kirk had been a megaphone, amplifying youthful energy for the right, a voice that seemed both reckless and indispensable to a certain generation of conservatives. To the left, he was a provocateur. To the right, a culture warrior. To many outside politics altogether, he was a meme factory. But death was a way of stripping away caricature. On the morning when phones buzzed with push notifications, Charlie Kirk, conservative activist, dies at 31. The question was not only how he died, but what would die with him. Shockwaves through a movement. For young conservatives, Kirk was more than a pundit. He had built a campus-based empire, making Turning Point USA a cultural juggernaut. He filled stadiums with students waving red caps and chanting slogans. He sat in the green rooms of Fox News whispering sound bites that would ricochet across the digital ecosystem within hours. His death, suddenly and unanticipated, created a vacuum. The right had no shortage of voices. Tucker Carlson still spoke nightly. Ben Shapiro commanded a sprawling media company. President Donald Trump remained a looming figure. But Kirk's particular lane was unique. He was a bridge between a college freshman attending their first conservative conference and the machinery of Washington power. His genius had been packaging ideology into viral content, Instagram posts, fiery speeches, TikTok snippets. He made politics feel like a concert tour. When such a figure disappears, movements often fracture. Who would inherit the students, the meme pages, the donors, the microphone? Within hours of his death, that was the whispered conversation in hotel bars where conservative strategists were gathered for conferences in Slack channels of political operatives and in the dorm rooms of Turning Point's chapter leaders scattered across American campuses. His death raises questions about what happens next for the conservative youth movement. Do they double down on Kirk's freewheeling style, or does his absence create space for a less Christian, less pro-Trump leadership? The politics of martyrdom. Death in politics often confers a kind of sainthood. Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination solidified him as a moral prophet. John F. Kennedy's sudden end froze his presidency in eternal youth. Even opponents hesitate in death's aftermath to speak ill. For Kirk, the calculus was complicated. He was polarizing in life. Could he be sanctified in death? The early hours told a story. Liberal commentators, cautious not to appear ghoulish, offered restrained condolences while reminding followers of Kirk's record of divisive rhetoric. Conservatives, meanwhile, painted him instantly in heroic terms: a warrior felled too soon, a truth-teller silenced in his prime. His face began to appear on hastily designed graphics with biblical verses shared across Instagram stories. For years, Kirk had warned his audiences that the left wanted to silence them, that conservative voices were under siege on campuses, online, and in culture. Now many of his followers folded it into that larger story, a fighter gone too soon because the world was too hostile to his truth. In that sense, his death might galvanize more than his life did. Generational shifts. Kirk represented a specific generational movement in conservatism. He was born in 1993, the same year Bill Clinton entered the White House. He came of age not during the Reagan Revolution, but in the era of George W. Bush, Barack Obama, and the culture wars of social media. His political style was not white papers and think tanks. It was Instagram stories, podcasts, viral debates, and liberal snowflakes. His death raises questions about what happens next for the conservative youth movement. Do they double down on Kirk's freewheeling style? Power vacuums and opportunities. Politics abhors a vacuum. Within days of Kirk's passing, speculation surged. Who would take over Turning Point USA? Would it merge with another organization? Could someone replicate his personal charisma? Names floated quickly. Influencers on the right who had built large online followings suddenly hinted at their willingness to carry Charlie's torch. Established figures like Shapiro and Carlson, though already dominant in their own domains, eyed the strategic value of absorbing Turning Point's infrastructure. Even Trump, always sensitive to the energy of youthful crowds, issued a statement that sounded a clarion call for action. Charlie believed in America. We will honor him by continuing to fight. The coming transformation, the death of a political figure, rarely changes politics overnight, but it can alter trajectories. Kirk's passing highlighted deeper questions already simmering in American life. 1. The personalization of politics. Charlie Kirk's career demonstrated how much movements now rely on personalities rather than institutions. His absence exposes the fragility of that model. Without him, can Turning Point USA sustain momentum? Or does it prove that personality-driven movements are inherently unstable? 2. The battle for youth. Both parties understand that young voters will define the next decades. Democrats invested heavily in climate and social justice appeals. Now, with the messenger gone, both sides may recalibrate. Democrats might press their advantage, Republicans might scramble to reframe youth outreach. 3. The digital battlefield. Kirk's legacy is digital. He showed how politics could be won, or at least shaped, through TikTok and Instagram reels, through podcasts more than policy briefs. His death raises the question, who will inherit that digital battlefield? Politics may not be transformed by who wins Congress, but by who dominates the algorithm. Echoes in history. History offers precedents. When conservative firebrand Andrew Breitbart died suddenly in 2012, many feared his media movement would collapse. Instead, it metastasized? I don't know that word. His website became more radical, more influential, and helped shape the Trump era. Could Kirk's death spark a similar dynamic? His absence might not cool the flames, but fan them. Alternatively, movements can sputter when their figurehead disappears. Ross Perot's Reform Party disintegrated after his withdrawal. The Tea Party lost coherence without charismatic leadership. The question is whether Kirk's infrastructure, Turning Point's conferences, its fundraising lists, its digital assets, can outlast the man himself. The first 48 hours. By the second day after the announcement, the politics of mourning had crystallized. Newsmax and Fox News ran tribute segments airing archival clips of Kirk jousting with opponents on college campuses. Liberal media outlets framed his death as the end of an era in youth conservatism. Social media was a battlefield. Tributes and taunts collided in algorithmic chaos. But beneath the noise, operatives were already strategizing. Conferences that week included emergency sessions. Donors asked, should we keep giving? Anyway, chapter leaders asked, who is in charge? Activist asks, what now? In those first 48 hours, the transformation had already begun. A nation watching. Kirk's death may not shift America's electoral map overnight, but it could mark the beginning of a new chapter in American politics. For years, he embodied a certain mode of conservatism, brash, digital, youth-oriented, and undeniably effective in shaping culture. His absence now forces a reckoning. What happened on the day Kirk died was not only the silencing of a voice, it was the opening of a question mark over the future of American politics. Chapter 2, American Beginnings. Someone once said, all good things in America start in the Midwest. Such was the case when Charlie Kirk was born on October 14, 1993, in Arlington Heights, Illinois, a quiet suburb northwest of Chicago. His arrival did not come with the fanfare that would later define his public career. He grew up in a middle-class family grounded in hard work, patriotism, and faith. His father, Robert Kirk, was an architect known for designing projects across the Midwest. His mother, a homemaker and a steady presence in his life, cultivated the rhythms of family and faith that would anchor him in later years. The Kirks were not political dynasts or wealthy patrons of American conservatism. They were ordinary suburbanites, comfortably but not extravagant, proud of their work ethic and eager to see their children succeed. Their neighborhood was defined by tree-lined streets, church communities, and high-achieving schools. To many, it was the picture of the American dream. From his earliest days, Kirk absorbed a love of country. His father emphasized respect for service and sacrifice, even though he never served in uniform himself. Dinner table conversations often touched on American history and the responsibilities of citizenship. The Kirk household leaned conservative in outlook, supportive of limited government and personal responsibility, but it was not overtly political. Charlie Kirk grew up in an era when America itself seemed in transition. The optimism of the 1990s, booming markets, technological innovation, a sense of post-Cold War triumph framed his early years. Yet the events of 9/11, which he experienced as a young boy, left an indelible mark. Like many of his generation, he learned early that America's place in the world was contested, that threats could come suddenly, and that national strength mattered. Kirk attended Wheeling High School, a large public school in a working-class district. It was not the polished environment of elite preparatory academies that produced many political leaders. Instead, it was diverse, bustling, and competitive, a place where Kirk began to notice the cultural divides in American life. He was a bright student, but not an academic standout. By his own admission, he struggled with mathematics, but thrived in history and political science classes. Teachers recalled a boy who was outspoken, curious, sometimes restless. He joined the Boy Scouts, achieving the rank of Eagle Scout, where he honed leadership skills and a sense of civic duty. Basketball was another passion. At 6'5", Kirk played for his high school team. Though he dreamed of going further, the limits of his athletic abilities eventually forced him to reconsider. The disappointment of not excelling in sports became a formative movement. It redirected his energies towards public speaking and political debate, arenas where height and physical skill mattered less than conviction and articulation. Kirk's first real taste of politics came not in Washington, but in his own backyard. As a teenager, he volunteered for local Republican campaigns in Illinois. He stuffed envelopes, knocked on doors, and handed out flyers. What struck him most was the disconnect between the grassroots energy he saw and the professional, often jaded political class. Even at a young age, he began to suspect that American conservatism needed a new style, one that spoke not in politics white papers, but in cultural clarity. In 2010, as a 17-year-old, he became involved in a campaign for Illinois Senator Mark Kirk, no relation. Though the race was bruising, it introduced Charlie to the mechanics of campaigning, messaging, mobilization, and the role of young volunteers. That experience solidified his desire to pursue politics not as a sideline, but as a vocation. The Turning Point, a speech that changed everything. The pivotal movement came in 2012. Kirk, then just 18, wrote an essay for Breitbart News criticizing liberal bias in high school textbooks. The piece caught the attention of conservative media figures and gave him his first national exposure. In 2012, he networked with donors like Foster Friess at the Republican National Convention in Tampa. In 2016, he addressed the RNC and again in 2020. There, he met Bill Montgomery, a retired marketing executive and Air Force veteran. Montgomery was impressed by the teenager's passion and articulation. Over coffee, the two sketched an idea that would change both their lives, a youth organization designed to energize conservatives on high school and college campuses. Montgomery would provide the wisdom and connections. Kirk would bring the energy and the charisma. Turning Point USA was born. Perhaps the most unconventional choice of Kirk's early life was his decision to forego college. He had been accepted into Baylor University, a respected Christian school in Texas, but at the last minute he chose not to attend. Instead, he committed himself full-time to building Turning Point. This decision was radical, especially for a young man with a background where higher education was often considered non-negotiable. For Kirk, however, it was philosophical as much as practical. He believed that universities had become indoctrination centers for liberal ideology. By rejecting the traditional college path, he lived out the critique he would later articulate so often, that success and fulfillment did not require 4 years of academia. His parents were supportive, though uncertain. It was a gamble, eschewing stability for the fledgling idea. Yet it was precisely this leap of faith that gave Turning Point its edge. Kirk could speak authentically to students about resisting the pressure to conform to liberal norms because he had personally rejected the institutional path laid before him. By the time he turned 20, Kirk was no longer just a restless teenager. He was a young entrepreneur of ideas, building an organization that would become one of the most influential conservative youth movements in America. Building Turning Point USA. In its infancy, Turning Point was little more than Kirk, a few volunteers, and a folding table at community events. He traveled the country in a beat-up car, visiting campuses, hosting small events, and recruiting students. His pitch was simple. Young Americans should embrace free markets, limited government, and individual liberty. The early years were grueling. Kirk crisscrossed the Midwest, often staying in cheap motels or on supporters' couches. He would hand out copies of the U.S. Constitution, debate professors, and organize small gatherings in classrooms. His youthful energy and willingness to listen to peers rather than preach earned him credibility among students who might otherwise have ignored conservative politics. Fundraising was a constant challenge, but Kirk proved adept at networking, cultivating donors who believed in his vision. His background gave him both a sense of discipline and an appreciation for self-reliance. He was unafraid to ask for help, but equally unafraid to work without it. Kirk's upbringing shaped his political style in subtle but profound ways. Middle-class roots. Coming from a family that worked for its success, Kirk absorbed the ethos of meritocracy. He believed opportunity should be earned, not given, and this belief permeated his speeches. Public school experience. Seeing firsthand the ideological tilt of public education, he became convinced that the left dominated the classroom. His later crusades against liberal academia were rooted in his teenage frustrations. Faith and family. Growing up in a stable, faith-oriented household, Kirk valued tradition, church, and community. These formed the cultural backbone of his conservative worldview. Athletic disappointment. His shift from basketball dreams to political ambition taught him resilience. Failure in one arena became fuel for success in another. By the time he turned 20, Kirk was no longer just a restless teenager. He was a young entrepreneur of ideas, building an organization that would become one of the most influential conservative youth movements in America. What drove Kirk was not merely ambition, but a sense of mission. He was convinced that the left had mastered the art of cultural influence through Hollywood, academia, and media, and that conservatives were perpetually playing defense. Turning point in his mind was the conservative counterattack. He was not yet a household name. He was, however, already a force, a tall, energetic young man with a microphone in his hand, a message on his lips, and a sense of destiny in his stride. Everything in his life had converged to prepare him for this role. For Charlie Kirk, the journey had only just begun. From campus to the White House. The election of Donald J. Trump in November 2016 sent shockwaves across the American political landscape. To the establishment, it was a once unimaginable upset. To the grassroots right, it was vindication. For one young conservative entrepreneur, Charlie Kirk, it was something else entirely: opportunity. Kirk had already founded Turning Point USA in 2012 with the intention of mobilizing conservative students on college campuses. By 2016, Turning Point had been steadily expanding its influence, establishing chapters across universities and staging events designed to counter the overwhelming liberal bent of academia. Yet, despite its progress, Turning Point USA was still more of a fledgling organization than a household name. Trump's surprise victory changed that overnight. The rise of Trump gave Turning Point USA both validation and momentum. What was once considered fringe and unapologetic defense of nationalism, populism, and free market conservatism suddenly became mainstream, and Kirk, barely in his 20s, positioned himself and his organization to ride this wave. One of the most consequential developments for Turning Point USA was Kirk's cultivation of a close relationship with the Trump family. While many establishment Republicans were slow to embrace the new president, Kirk recognized that Trump represented the future of conservative politics. He built bridges not only to the president but also to Donald Trump Jr., who quickly became an outspoken supporter of Turning Point USA. Trump Jr.'s involvement cannot be overstated. His charisma, social media reach, and fiery defense of his father's agenda resonated with young conservatives. At Turning Point USA conferences, Trump Jr. became a star attraction, drawing crowds and lending legitimacy to the movement. For Kirk, the Trump family's support was a powerful endorsement, transforming Turning Point USA from a scrappy student outfit into an organization with direct ties to the White House. Trump himself also acknowledged Turning Point USA's work, whether through public praise, retweets, or appearances at Turning Point USA affiliated events. The president's recognition elevated Kirk and his organization far above other youth groups. Kirk carefully cultivated the image of Turning Point USA as a Trump generation's political hub. Building the campus battlefield. Trump's election reframed the battleground for Turning Point USA, no longer content with merely hosting debates or passing out literature. The organization began casting its efforts as a direct counterattack against the progressive establishment. Turning Point USA branded campuses as ideological war zones, with conservative students portrayed as embattled minorities fighting hostile professors and administrators. Trump's rhetoric about fake news and the radical left dovetailed perfectly with this message. Turning Point USA tapped into the growing sense of grievance among conservative youths and offered them not only a community but a mission: defend Trump's America against the academic elite. The annual Student Action Summit became a centerpiece for this strategy. These high-energy gatherings mixed politics with entertainment, offering a convention-style experience that rivaled the feel of a Trump rally. With appearances by Trump family members, high-profile Republican figures, and conservative media stars, Turning Point USA conferences became pilgrimage sites for young conservatives. The media amplifier. While Turning Point USA built its foundation on campuses, its rise to national prominence would not have been possible without amplification from conservative media. Fox News and Newsmax, in particular, played pivotal roles. Fox News, the dominant cable news network for conservatives, began featuring Kirk as a young face of the movement. His regular appearances on shows like Hannity or Fox and Friends gave him access to millions of viewers. Kirk was articulate, telegenic, and uncompromising, a perfect fit for an audience energized by Trump's insurgent presidency. Through Fox, Turning Point USA's brand extended well beyond college quads and into living rooms across America. Newsmax, though smaller at the time, also became an important ally. Known for giving airtime to emerging conservative voices, Newsmax provided Kirk and his allies with a platform to reach grassroots activists often overlooked by mainstream outlets. Newsmax's tone was unapologetically pro-Trump, which aligned seamlessly with Turning Point USA's trajectory. Together, Fox and Newsmax legitimized Turning Point USA as not just a student movement, but a national force in conservative politics. The relationship between Trump, Turning Point USA, and conservative media was symbiotic. Trump's victory gave Turning Point USA cultural momentum. Turning Point USA mobilized young conservatives who served as vocal defenders of the administration. The media outlets amplified the organization's efforts, ensuring its message reached millions. Kirk's brilliance lay in recognizing and nurturing this ecosystem. He understood that students on campus needed to feel connected to something larger than themselves. By tying Turning Point USA to Trump's presidency and embedding it in conservative media circuits, he made young conservatives feel like soldiers in a historic cause. This synergy also benefited Trump, for a president often accused of struggling with younger demographics. Turning Point USA served as a pipeline for youthful enthusiasm. Kirk's organization framed Trump not as a relic of an older America, but as a fighter against the establishment, an image that resonated strongly with students eager to rebel against authority figures in academia. By the late 2010s, Turning Point USA was no longer a scrappy startup. It had become one of the most critical hubs of conservative organizing in America. Scaling beyond campuses. After 2016, Turning Point USA's ambitions expanded dramatically. No longer just a campus-based advocacy group, it began to act more like a national political movement. Kirk launched Turning Point USA's media arm, producing podcasts, digital shows, and social media content aimed at younger audiences. The content blended political commentary with lifestyle branding, borrowing tactics from influencers and entertainment media. Conferences expanded in scale and scope, drawing not only students but also donors, politicians, and activists from across the country. Turning Point USA also launched subsidiary efforts such as Turning Point Action to engage more directly in elections. By the late 2010s, Turning Point USA was no longer a scrappy startup. It had become one of the most critical hubs of conservative organizing in America. The organization's meteoric rise. No, that's not metaphoric. The organization's meteoric rise was not without critics. Liberals accused Turning Point USA of stoking division and promoting conspiracy theories. Even within conservative circles, some argued that Kirk leaned too heavily on Trumpism at the expense of intellectual conservatism. Reports on internal management issues and controversial chapter leaders occasionally drew unwanted scrutiny. Yet these controversies often fueled Turning Point USA's brand rather than hinder it. Within the conservative media ecosystem, criticism from the mainstream press was seen as validation. Every attack became proof that Turning Point USA was effective. The legacy of 2016. Looking back, the 2016 election was the inflection point. Without Trump's improbable victory, it is unlikely that Turning Point USA would have ascended so rapidly. Trump provided the movement's cultural energy. His family lent it credibility, and conservative media gave it national reach. Kirk's skill was in connecting these dots. He turned Turning Point USA into more than just a student group. It became a central node in the Trump-era conservative movement. The success of Turning Point USA illustrates how quickly political organizations can scale in the digital age when aligned with the right personalities, causes, and media infrastructure. Turning Point USA's journey after Trump's 2016 election demonstrates the importance of timing, relationships, and media in modern politics. The organization seized a political movement, leveraged high-level connections, and rode the currents of conservative media to national prominence. In doing so, Kirk transformed himself from a college dropout with an idea into one of the most influential figures in the Republican Party. And while the Trump presidency is always identified for its tumult and controversy, its role in propelling Turning Point USA is undeniable. What began as a campus movement has now become a major player in shaping America's political future. Without Trump's 2016 election and the support of Trump Jr., conservative media outlets like Fox and Newsmax and an energized base of young conservatives, Turning Point USA may never have grown beyond the margins. Instead, it stands today as a testament of how one political earthquake can create entirely new institutions of power. I gotta wear my I Am Charlie Kirk shirt today. Definitely gotta wear that today. Turning point on campus, Charlie Kirk's revolution. Charlie Kirk joins Greg Kelly Rep. From its inception in 2012, Turning Point USA was founded with a singular mission to shift the political culture of America's college campuses. Charlie Kirk, who never attended a four-year university, recognized early on that campuses were the battlegrounds where young Americans were not only educated but politically shaped. If the left dominated higher education, Kirk believed the future of conservatism would be imperiled. Turning Point USA's model was straightforward yet ambitious. Establish student chapters on as many campuses as possible, provide training and resources, and encourage activism that promoted free markets, limited government, and patriotic values. By the time Donald Trump had won the presidency in 2016, Turning Point USA already had founded. Oh, wait a minute, what? Turning Point USA already had a foundation laid on dozens of campuses. Over the next decade, that network expanded into hundreds of chapters, making it the most visible conservative student organization in the country. Kirk's strategy for growth was modeled less on traditional think tanks and more on grassroots organizing. Turning Point USA invested heavily in recruiting student leaders, often through large-scale conferences like the Student Action Summit. At these gatherings, students were trained in media engagement, activism techniques, and chapter-building strategies. The organization also offered ready-made campaigns that students could replicate. Banners like "Big Government Sucks" or "Socialism Sucks" became iconic at campus tabling events. Rather than leaving each chapter to invent its own messaging, Turning Point USA provided polished materials, ensuring brand consistency and recognizable slogans nationwide. Another cornerstone of Turning Point USA's expansion was digital media. Kirk and his team encouraged students to document their activism online, share videos of confrontations with administrators, and amplify incidents of alleged bias against conservatives. This not only galvanized conservative students, but also attracted donations from older conservatives eager to support the next generation of fighters. The financial backing was significant, with support from major donors and connections to conservative media. Turning Point USA could afford to provide travel stipends, free merchandise, and personal support to student leaders. This set it apart from underfunded student clubs that struggled to sustain themselves semester to semester. The liberal landscape of higher education. To understand Turning Point USA's rise, one must also grasp the political climate of American universities in the 2010s and 20s. Study after study confirmed that faculty leaned heavily to the left. At many elite institutions, conservative professors were rare, and student bodies often identified overwhelmingly as liberal or progressive. This environment gave Turning Point USA a clear foil. At schools where left-wing activism was dominant, whether it in the form of Black Lives Matter protests, climate justice campaigns, or calls for expanded diversity politics, policies, Turning Point USA positioned itself as the voice of the silenced minority. Students were told they were not alone, that conservatism still had a place on campus, and that they could be proud to defend their values. In practice, the landscape varied widely. At large, state schools in conservative-leaning states, Turning Point USA chapters often found robust support and even friendly faculty allies. At Ivy League and coastal institutions, however, chapters faced steep resistance from both students and administrators. The presence of Turning Point USA on a campus rarely went unnoticed. At some universities, their tabling events were greeted with counter-protests. Activists accused the organization of being inflammatory, and in some cases, student governments attempted to deny Turning Point USA chapters recognition or funding. Yep, I'm straight. So, you know, that's what it is, The Republicans are straight, the Democrats are faggots. That's it. It's that easy. Simple. Anyway, fuck those homos, Fuck you, homo. Anyway, the reaction from progressive students ranged from mockery to outright hostility. Do you see us faggots? Yeah, man. In this crosshairs of my scope, yeah. Stare at you guys all the time. You should see your heads explode. Goddamn fags, bro. Like, kill yourself, fag. Go kill yourself. I fucking hate faggots, bro. Been trying to suck my dick for my whole life. Goddamn fags. On a killing spree. Kill all them goddamn faggots, bro. Fucking hate them. Hate them. Shoot him right in his faggot fucking head. He's not dead right now because he didn't come over here and say that to my face. Because I'll beat the shit out of him, crack his skull open on this floor. I don't care. Fuck it. Kill him. The reaction from progressive students ranged from mockery to outright hostility. Ironically, this opposition often strengthened Turning Point USA's appeal. Administrators often found themselves caught between competing pressures. On the one hand, they had to uphold principles of free speech and association. On the other, they faced demands from progressive students to limit what they viewed as harmful rhetoric. This tension produced high-profile battles over Turning Point USA's events, with national media coverage often amplifying local disputes. The reaction from progressive students ranged from mockery to outright hostility. Viral videos of students tearing down Turning Point USA posters or shouting down speakers became staples in conservative media outlets, feeding a narrative of campus intolerance. Ironically, this opposition often strengthened Turning Point USA's appeal, both to its student members and to the donors who saw the group as bravely standing up to a hostile establishment. A bunch of faggot rapists. Kill all these bitches. Bitch. That's all. Every gay man on earth. Bitch. And all you dyke bitches, retarded. Done. That's it. It's that simple. Period. Like, kill them all. Alright. Beyond the Quad. A national platform. Even as it clashed with liberal student bodies, Turning Point USA leveraged every controversy into national attention. Appearances on Fox News, Newsmax, and other outlets ensured that small campus skirmishes were elevated into symbols of America's broader cultural wars. Kirk himself became a fixture on television, radio, and podcasts, often using campus incidents as evidence of the left's war on free speech by trying campus activism to national debates. Turning Point USA transformed itself from a student organization into a central pillar of the conservative movement. This feedback loop was essential. Campus activism fed national exposure, which in turn drove more donations, which funded further campus expansion. No other conservative student group in modern history matched Turning Point USA's reach or recognition. The shock of loss after Charlie Kirk. When Kirk passed away unexpectedly, universities across America reacted in complex and often contradictory ways. On the one hand, Kirk had been a polarizing figure, and many campus communities that had clashed with Turning Point USA expressed relief or indifference. On the other hand, his death forced institutions to reckon with the movement's undeniable impact. Some student governments issued statements acknowledging Kirk's influence, while reiterating opposition to his politics. A few universities that had once tried to ban Turning Point USA's events quietly reflected on whether such measures had been consistent with free expression. In academic circles, scholars began to publish analysis of Turning Point USA as a case study in modern political organizing, treating Kirk's work with the same seriousness as earlier student movements of the left. Among conservative students, Kirk's death was met with grief and a renewed sense of mission. Vigils were held on campuses where Turning Point USA chapters had thrived. At conferences, speakers described him as a warrior who had given young conservatives permission to be bold in hostile environments. Interestingly, some universities that had once battled Turning Point USA shifted their tone after his death. Campus administrators, mindful of his national prominence, issued carefully worded statements about free speech and the importance of dialogue across ideological divides. For institutions that had seen repeated clashes with Turning Point USA, acknowledging Kirk's legacy was a way to reset the narrative and avoid appearing intolerant to retrospect. The long-term effects of Kirk's work is still debated. For critics, Turning Point USA left behind a culture of confrontation that exacerbated polarization on campus. For supporters, it created a durable infrastructure for conservative students, ensuring that they would never again feel voiceless in academia. Universities, too, were permanently shaped by the Turning Point USA era. The battles over recognition, funding, and free speech led many institutions to clarify or rewrite policies governing student organizations and guest speakers. In that sense, Turning Point USA forced higher education to grapple with the meaning of pluralism in an age of polarization. Even after Kirk's death, the organization will continue under new leadership. Kirk's Turning Point USA demonstrated the power of focused, well-funded activism in shaping national policies from the ground up. Kirk's Turning Point USA demonstrated the power of focused, well-funded activism in shaping national politics from the ground up. By targeting universities, Kirk seized the symbolic heart of American intellectual life and inserted conservatism into spaces where it had long been marginalized. The reactions he provoked, from outrage to admiration, were part of the strategy. Turning Point USA thrived on controversy, and in doing so, it exposed the ideological imbalance of higher education while building a generation of conservative activists. For Charlie, Christ was everything. All right. Charlie Kirk was not only recognized for his fiery speeches on college campuses and his influence among young conservatives, but also for his deep connection to Christianity. To Kirk, politics and faith were inseparable. He viewed America's future as hinging on its moral and spiritual foundation. His public ministry became intertwined with his political advocacy, positioning him as one of the most outspoken defenders of evangelical Christianity in the modern American political landscape. While firmly rooted in Protestant evangelicalism, Kirk also engaged with Catholic thought, finding common ground in moral and cultural issues that transcend denominational divides. For Kirk, Christianity was not a personal footnote, but a central axis of his worldview. Raised in a nominally Christian environment, his adulthood marked a deepening of his personal faith. He frequently cited the Bible as the ultimate authority on truth, morality, and human purpose. His theology emphasized the authority of Scripture. Kirk insisted The Bible is God's revealed word and the standard for both individual and collective life. The reality of sin and redemption, central to his message, was that human beings need forgiveness through Christ, a message he tied closely to America's need for cultural renewal. A mission-oriented outlook, Kirk viewed Christian evangelicalism not just as spiritual outreach, but as cultural preservation, and believed that America's greatness depends on its adherence to biblical principles. Kirk's style reflected the classic evangelical blend of personal pity and public engagement. Faith is not compartmentalized to private devotion, but extends into every sphere of life, especially politics. Founding turning point, faith. In recent years, Kirk pushed further into explicitly evangelical initiatives, most notably through Turning Point Faith, the religious arm of Turning Point USA. This branch seeks to mobilize pastors, churches, and Christian youth into cultural and political activism. The mission is clear. America cannot be saved politically unless it is first revived spiritually. Kirk frequently spoke at churches across the country, framing political battles over abortion, marriage, gender, and freedom of speech as spiritual battles. His message resonated with pastors who see their congregations under cultural pressure, and with young Christians looking for a political expression of their faith. Turning Point Faith reflected Kirk's belief that the health of the Republic is tied to the faith of its citizens. He often warns that secularism leads to moral decay, while a revival of Christianity restores civic order and national purpose. For Kirk, separating religion from politics was impossible and undesirable. He frequently pointed out that America's founding fathers grounded the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence on Judeo-Christian values, particularly the belief in God-given rights. If rights are not given by God, Kirk argued, they can be taken away by the state. Several key issues demonstrated his fusion of politics and faith. 1. Abortion. Kirk was a staunch pro-life activist. He framed abortion not simply as a political issue, but as a moral atrocity and national sin. He often cited Psalms 139, emphasizing that life is sacred from conception. In his speeches, he declared that a society that kills its unborn cannot sustain freedom. Religious liberty. Kirk defended the right of Christians to live out their beliefs in public life, whether in business, education, or healthcare. He warned against government overreach that compels believers to act against their conscience and framed such encroachments as steps towards tyranny. Marriage and family. He viewed the biblical family structure, marriage between a man and a woman, raising children in faith and moral discipline, as foundational to the health of civil society. He argued that political attacks on family values gradually weaken the moral fabric of the nation. Education and culture. Kirk believed that secular progressivism had come to dominate higher education and public schools, steadily eroding the foundation of Christian values. Through Turning Point, he sought to counter this influence by equipping students with apologetics, sound political reasoning, and a firm biblical conviction. Evangelical work as cultural renewal. Kirk's brand of evangelicalism was activist at heart. His sermons and talks often echoed the tone of revival preaching, calling people to repentance not just for personal sins but for national ones. His rallies at churches and universities often carried the fervor of revival meetings blended with the staging of political conventions. Unlike some evangelical leaders who seek to stay out of politics, Kirk deliberately framed his work as cultural war evangelism. He was not content with conversations in the private sphere, but insisted that Christians must reclaim cultural and political institutions. In his words, if Christians don't engage, darkness will. Kirk deliberately framed his work as culture war evangelism, insisting if Christians don't engage, darkness will. This perspective resonates strongly with younger conservatives who see themselves as cultural outsiders in a secularized America. Kirk offered them not just political tools, but spiritual ones. Though firmly Protestant, Kirk showed a growing interest in Catholicism. He often engaged Catholic thinkers, attended Catholic events, and highlighted the Church's intellectual and moral tradition. His admiration of Catholicism centered on several key areas. 1. Pro-life leadership. The Catholic Church's consistent and uncompromising defense of life was an inspiration to Kirk. He praised Catholic institutions for keeping the pro-life movement alive for decades and often collaborated with Catholic leaders. 2. Natural law and moral clarity. Kirk spoke favorably of Catholic philosophical traditions, especially natural law theory, articulated by thinkers like Thomas Aquinas. He saw this intellectual heritage as a powerful counterweight to moral relativism, cultural conservatism. Catholic voices ranging from Pope John Paul II to contemporary bishops have long been allies in resisting secularization. Kirk readily acknowledged their central role in articulating a coherent vision of society rooted firmly in objective truth. While Kirk himself remained evangelical, he viewed Protestants and Catholics as allies in a shared mission, defending life, liberty, and faith in the public square. This ecumenical respect showed Kirk's pragmatism and his recognition that cultural renewal requires a broad Christian coalition. Kirk represented a new generation of evangelicals who refused to separate their faith from their politics. For him, Christianity was not just personal salvation, but public truth, meant to guide nations as well as individuals. Kirk's blending of evangelical fervor with political messaging drew both admiration and criticism. Supporters lauded him for boldly proclaiming the truth. Without apology. Critics, however, argue that he sometimes risked conflating the Gospels with partisan politics, reducing Christianity to a political agenda. Others counter that Kirk simply carried on the tradition of American evangelicals from Jonathan Edwards to Billy Graham, who saw national revival as inseparable from spiritual awakening. Regardless of criticism, Kirk's influence is undeniable. He mobilized thousands of young believers, made churches central to political activism, and carved a space where evangelicalism openly shapes political identity. Kirk represented a new generation of oh my fucking so tired of that fucking word, man. I'm not even saying that fucking word again. I've said it 1,000 times already. Who refused to separate their faith from their politics. For him, Christianity was not just personal salvation, but public truth, meant to guide nations as well as individuals. Through his work, he built a movement that blends revivalist passion with political urgency, insisting that America's survival depends on its return to Christian foundation. It's like a tongue twister for me. Evangelical. Tongue twister, man. Charlie's fight for life, his war on transgender. Pastor Lucas Miles said bluntly, Charlie Kirk died a martyr. Miles was a close friend of Charlie's and ran his Turning Point faith. Just before Kirk died, he penned the foreword for Miles' new book, Pagan Threat, Confronting America's Godless Uprising. Kirk walked the walk. He strongly opposed abortion and radical transgender movement. His views and his outspokenness may have cost him his life. For more than a decade, Kirk had built a public identity around a simple set of commitments, a muscular, unapologetic conservatism, a fusion of faith and politics, and an unflinching moral language on social issues. In the years before his death, those commitments, especially his relentless pro-life advocacy and forceful critiques of transgender ideology, became central to how he spoke, who followed him, and how opponents responded. From the earliest days of Turning Point USA, Kirk placed abortion at the moral center of his public activism. He consistently framed abortion not as a private policy question or a matter of medical nonsense, but as a fundamental human right issue. His language, often borrowed from religious and juridical registers. As he explained in his segments, Ask Charlie, abortion was not just a religious issue. Even if I didn't believe in the Bible, there is no scientific justification for abortion, he said. There just isn't. If you believe that life is a human being, then as soon as that life is formed, that life is deserving and worthy of protection under the law. Across speeches to student audiences, conservative conferences, and national media appearances, Kirk called for the legal protection of the unborn, arguing that scientific facts about conception, biblical understandings of life, and the Republican commitment to the sanctity of human dignity all pointed towards a single moral calculation. Life begins at conception, and society has an obligation to defend it. Journalistic retrospectives and clips resurfaced after his death, highlighting earlier comments in which he described abortion in stark terms, equating it in some viral clips to a mass atrocity, and explaining that his position was informed by both faith and a literal reading of biblical beginnings. We allow the massacre of 1.5 million babies a year under the guise of women's reproductive health, Kirk argued. We are allowing babies to be taken away and discarded every single year, just saying they are not humans. You are using dehumanizing language, saying, oh, it's an embryo. No, that's a baby, made in the image of God, deserving protection, he added. It is never right to justify the mass termination of people under the guise of saying that they are unwanted. That's how we got Auschwitz. That's how we got the greatest horror of the 20th century. More than once, he compared abortion to the Holocaust, or worse. When someone challenged him by asking if he was comparing abortion to a Holocaust, Kirk replied, absolutely, I am. In fact, it is worse. It's worse. Kirk's style was direct and rhetorical, by design. In long terms, interviews, and rapid fire campus debates, he often combined scripture, science, and political arguments, pointing to passages and what he characterized as the self evident truth that a unique human genome emerges at conception. He framed laws protecting life as a fulfillment of biblical teaching and a social contract that protects the vulnerable. To supporters, many drawn from church groups, conservative student networks, and pro life organizations, his arguments felt like an integrated moral case that synchronized personal belief with public policy. Kirk took the position that even in extreme cases, such as a very young child becoming pregnant by rape, and the baby should still be delivered. For me, the answer is yes, the baby would be delivered. Complementing his pro-life advocacy was an equally robust commitment to traditional pro-family vision. Kirk presented family, marriage between a man and a woman, stable parenting, and a faith-centered household life as the bedrock institution for American flourishing. Kirk presented family, marriage between a man and a woman, stable parenting, and a faith-centered household life as the bedrock institution for American flourishing. He argued that cultural decay followed when those institutions were devalued, and he repeatedly urged policy and cultural leaders to incentivize marriage and parental authority. In speeches to Christian audiences, he paired appeals to Scripture with a political program, family as the natural school of virtue, family as a check on state power, and family as the place where future citizens are formed. These lines, part pastoral, part political, helped him cement alliances with religious conservatives and with politicians who saw family policies as a core issue of cultural conservatism. Kirk's opposition to the transgender rights movement was one of his most notable and to some polarizing stance. He described what he saw as the radicalism of current transgender ideology, not merely as a policy disagreement, but as a cultural shift that, in his view, threatened the coherence of sex-based institutions and the rights of parents. The Advocate reported Kirk as saying, "Trans people are a throbbing middle finger to God." He used this language to express moral outrage at transgender activism, especially the idea of redefining biological sex and gender. He believed males in women's sports with transgender athletes was cheating. Speaking at a Saving America Tour event regarding swimmer Leah Thomas, Kirk said, "Leah Thomas has destroyed female sports as we know it. I want every human being to be able to flourish, but I also don't like cheaters, and you shouldn't either." "You need to intervene," he said, according to Media Matters. "Get off the court. Get out of the pool. It's not going to happen anymore." In that same speech, he argued that male-born athletes have physical advantages, bone density, testosterone, and musculature over female competitors that cannot be fully mitigated by hormone suppression. In Debts and on his show, he criticized medical interventions for minors, questioned the expansion of gender-based legal categories, and warned of the social consequences of decoupling sex from biology. His critics, radical LGBTQ advocates, civil rights organizations, and many left-wing journalists accused him of dehumanizing rhetoric and amplifying fear to trans people. Supporters of his stance viewed his positions as a principled defense of biological reality and parental authority. Either way, the language he used, framed in urgent moral terms made him both an influential voice and a frequent target. In the same or similar context, Kirk argued that gender fluidity or transgender ideology represents a challenge to biological reality, natural law, or what he saw as the traditional moral order. We must ban trans affirming care. The entire country. Donald Trump needs to run on this issue, Kirk said. He added that there are only two genders, and transgenderism, gender fluidity are lies that hurt people and abuse kids. After Kirk's murder, investigators said they are exploring motives in ways women exploring motive in ways that puts his public rhetoric under harsh new scrutiny. Law enforcement officials and major news outlets reported that the subject was identified as 22-year-old Tyler Robinson. Charging documents alleged he had been living and romantically involved with a transgender woman at the time of the attack, and that he appeared to have been radicalized online and obsessed with Kirk. Yeah, I know this, you fucking ass. Federal investigators recovered forensic evidence trying Robinson to the scene, and said they were examining whether any communications or contacts connected him to people who had been publicly critical of Kirk. Those details have been reported by multiple outlets and were described by the FBI as part of an active inquiry. Authorities have not, however, drawn firm conclusions in public about a single clear motive or about any controversial link between organized groups and Robinson's actions. I can clearly see all of these like gay Democrats around me doing their little faggot ass bullshit. Like, I'm not blind or retarded, and I'm not gay, and like I've been fighting you fags my whole life. And like, you know better than to come near me with that, because that's why you never do it, because you know you get your jaw broken, and I will crush your skull and take your brain out of it. All right? So you're a disgusting piece of shit. You should be shot. Like, I hate you fags. All right. Anyway, Robinson faces several charges, including aggravated murder, and officials say they are seeking the death penalty. Charging documents and investigators have alleged that his public positions, especially regarding transgender issues, may have been a factor. The case is ongoing. The overlap between his political alliances and his cultural positions is also said. What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? You're a bitch. You don't know that, though. You know you're a bitch. You know you're a bitch. You're a bitch, and you ain't good enough to eat my shit. That's why you beg all day, every day, for shit, for poop, because you need something to eat. You need God's shit to survive. And if you don't get it, you're just crazy all the time, because you're not, because you're fags and I'm not. That's it. That's the only reason. It's what evil is. It's what evil is. We're just evil homos that want to eat my shit. Kirk's anti-trans and pro-family arguments found common cause with President Donald Trump and with several Christian conservative organizations that had beat death to homos, you stupid dumb faggot, before 2025, mobilized around similar themes. Yeah, kill yourself. Defending religious liberty, restricting transition-related medical care for minors, and prioritizing parental... Yeah, but you don't bother me with your gay shit. That's why I hope they kill all you fags. Parental rights. Straight up. I would like Holocaust your asses. Gas them. Just like that. That alignment brought Kirk access to political platforms and a constituency that viewed cultural change as existential. It also invited fierce contestation from advocacy groups on the left. It's just a bunch of gay homosexuals begging me to take a shit in their mouth so that they can finally turn around and say that I'm not straight, and then feel so much better that they ate my shit. That's all that it is, man. And they're always going to be there trying to eat my shit until I'm like 1,000 years old and I die and they never ate my shit. That's all that it is. They just wish they could eat my shit. I wish I had to take a big old shit on the ground so I could suck it up like vacuum cleaners or like flies or some shit, you know? Anyway, after his death, leaders across the conservative movement, political and religious, invoked his words and framed his work as part of a broader struggle over America's moral horizon. There is no question that Kirk's public stance and focus on abortion and transgender issues played a role in his death. The investigation is ongoing, and while officials have disclosed elements such as the suspect's relationship with a transgender partner and writings suggesting an ideological fixation, they have not issued a definitive motive that reduces a complex criminal act to a single cause. It's simple what that dude did. That dude was a faggot, okay? And he was a super fag because he was fucking a dude that was a fucking dude that tried to be a chick, right? And he was fucking this thing, you know? And like that thing was crying and complaining all the time because nobody liked its nasty ass, because it's like the epitome of weakness, right? Like, who the fuck wants to do that? You know what I mean? Like, what's the next step? Killing yourself altogether? Like, anyway, he was a weak ass person. He got broken the fuck down into practically nothing, and he was crying about it, right? Because he didn't have what it took to survive, right? So his bitch ass boyfriend, or whatever the fuck, I don't know, whatever that thing was, got all bent out of shape about it, got a hair across his pussy, right? And was just lunatic himself, one eye going this way, one eye going that way, fucking retard. And he shot the guy. That was it. Because he was a fucking emotional ass, angry little bitch. That's it. That's all it was. And now he's dead. I'm gonna give him the death penalty. He's dead. He gives a fuck. He's dead. Yeah? Fucking disgusting. Fucking useless people. Just human shit, dude. Anyway. It's that simple. It's that simple. Every faggot homosexual on the planet Earth hates straight people. It's just the way that it is. All these gay white people, they hate me. And I hate them. I don't care. If I had a flamethrower, they'd be gone. You know? The tragedy of his killing has promoted urgent conversations about the responsibilities of public figures, the volatile interplay of online radicalization and real-world violence, and the need for nonviolent channels for debating ideas. What is indisputable, however, is that Kirk's words made him a visible symbol in a polarized public square, a standard bearer for a set of moral claims that inspired deep loyalty and equally deep animus. The tragedy of his killing has promoted urgent conversations about the responsibilities of public figures, the volatile interplay of online radicalization and real-world violence, and the need for nonviolent channels for debating ideas. Do all the homosexuals that are around me right now, fucking with me, realize that I hate faggots, that I fucking despise you with a passion? So fuck off and kill yourself. Go. I know what this all is. I know everything. Like, I hope you die. Like, I fucking hope you go home tonight and put a gun in your mouth or a grenade up your ass or something and just fucking end it. You know? You don't understand that though, right? Like, no matter what I say, you just, I can't understand, dude. But you ain't got no balls, so what do I have to worry about? You stand right there and say something to me. Watch what happens. Just do it. Huh? You're not allowed to? What a bitch. What a bitch. That's why you're always talking about your fag-gina. You ain't got balls, motherfucker. You ain't got no balls. You ain't got nothing else. For historians of conservative media, I don't understand what's the problem. You know what I mean? I don't understand if it's a problem. If there was a chick sitting over there, I could walk right up to her and be like, hey, baby, what's up? You look mad good. Let me get that phone number. I'm trying to fuck. I could say that. What could she do? No? Okay, see ya. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? But they won't say that to me. Because they know, he won't just say no. You're damn right. You heard? I wish you would. It's like, bro, fucking dude, they'll be pulling you out of the ceiling. It's like, he's up in the ceiling. Don't fuck them up. I'm like, damn, I've been waiting my whole life to break that motherfucker's neck. For historians of conservative media and for readers they're like, we're white though. I'm like, you're faggot whites. And I'm a straight white. So I'm like Hitler to the Jews. And you faggot whites are Jews. I round you all up, throw you in the fire. Just like that. Just like that. Get it through your faggot head, you fucking dumb bitch. God damn, you a dumb bitch. For historians of conservative media and for readers trying to understand Kirk's place in 21st century American life, the last chapter of his public life will be read against the backdrop of his core arguments. He consistently urged a return to what he viewed as first principles, respect for nascent human life, reverence for family, and skepticism towards rapid cultural change, anchoring his case in a mixture of biblical citation, appeals to science, and partisan mobilization. Partisan mobilization. Whether one agreed with him or not, he was unmistakably effective at turning moral conviction into organizational power. The aftermath of his death, both the criminal inquiry and the rhetorical ripples has forced a national reckoning about the shape of political speech, the line between passionate advocacy and incendiary rhetoric, and how a democratic society perceives debate while protecting citizens from violence. Um, attention homos? No. Are you a fucking brain dead, mentally retarded? Exact, there you go, you see? You just said it. You're an evil fucking piece of shit, and I'm not. Exact, there you go. So why are you playing games, man? I wouldn't let you eat my shit out of a toilet, motherfucker. I wouldn't. I'm very, very cautious. When I take a shit, I make sure it's all gone, cause I know you. You come sniffing around, and all that fucking fly thing will come out of your face. You start sucking all over the toilet, praying to Christ, Jesus, God Almighty, please, Lord God, let there be some shit. Oh God, you know. If only I could eat some shit, one little particle of shit. Oh. The entire fucking white homosexual LGBTQ Democratic Party, you know, and the whole planet Earth is just begging, just hailing. They got so many satanic things going on, begging and praying to Satan, please, please, send us one molecule of Paul's shit, please, please. They're all down on their knees just praying to Satan, please, Satan, deliver us one turd, one little tiny speck of shit. Oh, yeah, the shit that saves the devil. Bitch, you ain't getting no shit from me. One little tiny microscopic speck of shit. You heard? Save the entire planet of gay white people. I'll be like, blow it up. I ain't sending them shit. I ain't sending them nothing. Hit it with a nuke. Fuck that shit. Blow it up. When Charlie Kirk was fatally shot on September 10, 2025, at a Turning Point USA event on the campus of Utah Valley University, the nation, already deeply fractured along political, cultural, and religious lines, found itself confronted with a moment that could not be ignored. Kirk, a powerful and exceptionally influential figure in conservative youth politics and evangelical circles, did not die quietly. His brutal assassination rippled outward fast, with grief, anger, criticism, fear, and uncertainty all spilling into the public square. In the immediate days after the shooting, the atmosphere in America was electric and raw. Thousands turned out for memorials, vigils, and TV specials. Political gatherings, church services, even secular spaces, town halls, campuses, civic centers were filled with people recalling Kirk's speeches, quoting his slogans, and reflecting on what his work had meant. Public mourning. People who disagreed with Kirk politically still expressed sorrow at the violent manner of his death. Many emphasized that no matter one's views, the idea of a public figure being gunned down politicized the very act of speech and gathering. Flags at federal buildings were flown at half-mast. President Donald Trump announced he will posthumously award Kirk the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Evangelical response. The Christian evangelical community, and more broadly Christian leaders across denominational lines, cited Kirk's death as that of a martyr. Sermons compared his life and message to those of earlier Christian leaders who challenged secular, no, I don't want anything to do with you faggots, you dumb bitch, bang, secular or political power, and faced persecution. Faith leaders urged calm, but also called for greater fuck death to the gay white people, resolve in defending religious liberty, life, and free speech. Political, yeah, get it through your head, pedophile. Political shock, same thing. Both political parties, I'm a grown man, but when you started this nasty shit, I was a little child. Both political parties expressed horror at what many described as the latest escalation in U.S. political violence. Republican leaders denounced the act, blamed rising rhetoric and intolerance, and called for investigations into ideological movements. Democrat leaders, what's that? What's that? Look, man, touch me and die. Democrat leaders also condemned the act while warning about how any rhetoric from all sides can contribute to a climate of hostility. A public death this changed also brought instant debate, and not only of the emotional kind, but of ideological responsibility. Many critics asked whether the intensity of political media and religious rhetoric in recent years helped create a climate where violence became possible. Accusations flew. Conservatives warned that left-wing extremism and demonization of conservative activities had been escalating. Liberals responded that far-right hate speech, conspiracy-driven claims, and attacks on marginalized groups had been pervasive. Questions poured in about whether speech on both sides had crossed the line. Yeah, well, when you can't understand, no thanks, I'm not gay, shoot them and kill them all, blow them up, nuke them, chop their heads off. Like, what the fuck do you have to say to get them to be like, oh, okay, I'm gonna go fuck myself? That's the only reason it gets like that. Goddamn pedophiles, man. Gay, white, homosexual, Caucasian, white people that are gay should be hung and then disemboweled or something. Like, what the fuck, like they're retarded or some shit. Constantly begging, please, let me eat your shit, please. It's like, go fucking eat a dog shit or something, man. Go eat some dog shit. You ain't eating my shit, bitch. This shit's too good for you, bitch. This feces is too good for you to eat. Right? You're not good enough to consume the feces. You know what I'm saying, you nasty piece of shit? Alright. Let's see. Videos of the shooting, social media reactions, some supportive, some celebratory, some conspiratorial, and instant spread of unverified claims stoked distrust. Yo, they actually were laughing about it just now. I know, right? I remember when that dude asked Charlie Kirk, he was like, hey man, what's the number one leading cause to LGBTQ suicide? And Charlie Kirk was like, because you're all fucking nuts? Because you're crazy? Mental illness? He goes, mental illness? And the guy was like, no, it's because we're not accepted by people like you. People like me, basically. Like me, right? My whole life, these gay, white, homosexual men have been begging me to just shit in their mouth. Like, please take a huge dump in me. I'm like, sorry, you're not good enough to be my toilet. You know what I'm saying? And I hate them. I do. I don't care if they're white. What the fuck's that matter? There's evil white people. They're called homosexuals. Like, the fuck? You're like crazy? I say round them all up, cut their heads off. You know what I'm saying? Done. It ain't hard to do. I'm with it. You know what I'm saying? I'm just waiting for motherfuckers to call it on. I'm like, let's roll. I'm waiting. That's all I do is wait. I can't wait though. Like, I wish that motherfuckers would try something with me. Make me so happy, man. Oh my god. Thank God. I've been waiting to kill you for so long. Thought you were never gonna show up. Just kill his ass. Should be awesome. Alright, where the fuck did I leave off? Alright. Following his death, there were urgent calls in Congress and by state legislatures for more effective measures to protect public speakers, reform event security protocols, and penalize hate speech or extremist content. Some conservatives-led states pushed back, arguing that such measures risked trampling on free speech or being used to censor dissent. The comparisons started almost immediately. Journalists, clergy, and civilians drew parallels between Kirk's assassination and those of John F. Kennedy and Martin Luther King Jr. The faggot white dudes, they say, well, why? What's wrong with us? I'm like, well, I told you I'm not a faggot and I don't want anything to do with you. And then you just keep pushing it. And I'm like, okay, then why don't you, like, man the fuck up and push that fucking shit, man? Come on. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm a bitch. I was like, that's what I was trying to tell you. You're a bitch. It doesn't make any sense. It's like the dumbest fucking mentality I've ever... I can't even count. This makes no sense. Gay white dudes, right? They're attracted to me because I'm not gay, right? And I'm like, sorry, I'm not gay. right? And instead of being like, oh, okay, and moving on to like all of the other billions of fucking people out there, they gotta like stay focused on you for some reason. And I'm like, all right, look, I'm not gay. And they're like, well, blah blah blah. I'm like, well, why don't you man the fuck up? Try that. Try to be a man then, bitch. You claiming you something, bitch, motherfucker, do it. Do something. And then you don't do it because you'll be broken. I will pick you up over my head and I will bring you down on my knee and snap your spinal cord. Yeah. And I want you to do that. I would love to fuck you up. You heard? I wish you had balls. But you don't. You don't have balls. So accept that you're a bitch. You're a bitch. Alright? So be gone, girl. Be gone. Sorry. You can't be a toilet, girl. And then all you're going to do is sit around and cry like a woman. He won't come in me. My gay mangina isn't pretty enough. And he's like, it's not that, it's because I want something else. It's like, you don't have any balls. What the hell are you talking about? Right? Because I'm not allowed. You're not allowed to what? Speak? I guess not, ladies. I guess you girly men aren't even allowed to fucking speak, huh? No balls ass motherfuckers, bro. Huh? What's that? What was that? I wouldn't want a fucking dyke. I don't want to be with a lesbian. Are you crazy? Ew. That's all I'd need to hear come out of a woman's mouth. I exist right now. Right here, right now. I have had no way of influencing the masses of people to be what determines whether or not they are lesbians or not. That had nothing to do with me. But if you are now a dyke, I would never want to be with you, ever. That is disgusting. No fucking way in hell. You heard? That's all I'd need to hear. If any potential woman, right? And I would talk to them. Because some of these women out here, some real women, they love dicks. They're like, man, I can't wait to find a man and have babies and shit. I'm like, you're a goddess. You're perfect. You're beautiful, right? That's a wonderful woman, right? But these things, ugh, fucking disgusting, bro. That's all I need to hear. One thing come out of that's all I need to hear. Oh, there's nothing wrong with being gay. Bitch, gone. Poof. Just like that. I would never be with a faggot lesbian. Are you out of your fucking mind? That shit is disgusting, bro. Hell no. That shit is worthless. Garbage. Just throw that shit out with the rest of the gays. Fucking retarded bitch, man. I don't give a fuck about that stupid bitch. That bitch doesn't even exist to me. You think everything I say is about her? Are you fucking crazy? I don't give a fuck about that bitch. She useless. Nasty ass bitch. She's the kind of woman that would try to lead little boys down the wrong fucking path. So she can die for that. And the same way these gay motherfuckers torture the shit out of me, she would torture the shit out of a straight girl. She can die for that too. I kill this bitch mad times, man. Nasty pig. Fucking dyke puke bitch. Fucking pig bitch. Anyway, where was I? Did I finish this part here? Yeah. Alright. The comparisons started almost immediately. Journalists, clergy, and civilians drew parallel between Kirk's assassination and those of John F. Kennedy and Martin Luther King Jr., both killed not only because of hatred or political violence, but because of what they represented: hope, change, moral challenge, and in King's case, radical insistence on racial justice and inclusive love. Could Kirk occupy a similar place in memory? Like Kennedy, Kirk appealed to younger American students on campuses, social media audiences, and faith-based activities. His death reinforced for his supporters the idea that his vision of conservative renewal was unfinished and opened space for a mythos around the lost promise of a leader taken too soon. If Christian tradition, martyrdom, carries special weight, Kirk's evangelical base interpreted his death as more than political. It was a spiritual testimony. In Christian tradition, martyrdom carries special weight. Kirk's evangelical base interpreted his death as more than political. It was a spiritual testimony. Sermons linked him to biblical prophets. Christian media outlets began reframing his life and message with a prophetic tone. He had stood for moral truth, opposed secularization, and called the nation to repentance. These narratives would shape how generations remember him. Though deeply an American figure, Kirk's death resonated abroad. His influence in conservative circles transcended U.S. borders, in part because many evangelical and conservative networks internationally follow U.S. culture, make connections with U.S. political movements, and share similar debates over culture, religion, and identity. International conservative media, religious leaders, and politicians sent condolences. Countries with strong evangelical communities, Nigeria, Brazil, parts of Africa, and the Philippines, saw their religious leaders invoke Kirk's death in sermons about persecution, Christians' witness, and the global struggle for religious freedom. As with JFK and MLK, the full impact of Kirk's life and death will only emerge in time, but certain trajectories seem likely. Institutional memorialization. Plans for monuments, scholarships, and endowed institutions bearing his name are already faintly emerging. Turning Point USA, the evangelical churches he worked with, and political groups aligned with his values may establish Charlie Kirk's fellowship or youth programs to continue his work. Schools, especially those he visited, may designate spaces or events in his honor. Mobilization of young evangelicals. On many campuses, interest in Christian political activism will grow after Kirk's death. Many young people who attended his events or followed him on social media now feel a personal stake, where before some might have viewed him as a firebrand. His death turns him into a symbol of both what was lost and what must be defended, a reckoning. On both sides of the political divide, there is likely to be a hardening. His supporters may invoke him to call out cancel culture, claim persecution, and push for greater protections. Critics will likely hold that his style contributed to demoralization. Yeah, I know all about the poisons, and how these fucking Democrat scumbags like to fucking poison people and put shit in your food and poison you and you get cancer and all that shit, And I know everything. There's nothing, okay, that I don't fucking know. And that's why I would always be, wise enough to say that I know nothing, also. Because mathematics alone by itself is an infinite amount of knowledge, okay? And I can give you one right now that nobody knows. Just random number. Random equation. Like 355,287 multiplied by 76.635 divided by 82. And then after you get that answer, you fucking hit the square root button. And what is that? Nobody in here knows. Pull out a calculator, go through it, figure it out, or have the voices from the fucking V2K ops hit the fucking undercover cops around here to give them the answer, and then you know. But you don't know. Then you know, okay? You know what I'm saying? Like spell the word the, T-H-E. That's easy. That's something you know. It's the difference. Anyway. So, I know everything, but I know nothing. And that's why I know nothing, because there's just an infinite amount of things I don't know, and just mathematics. Biology, infinite amount of shit. It's true. Sociology, infinite amount of shit. It's all like infinities, because I wrote this paper once, right? I wrote a paper, and I called it The Smartest Scientist. If you read like a chemistry book, a lot of chemistry books have like cliff notes and shit that are taken from like physics books. And physics and chemistry are two different fields, right? And then you read that physics book where that quote came from, or that cliff note came from, right? Or the index reference from a book that was physics. You read that, and then once you're reading all of that, in there somewhere there's like some biology shit. Then you have to get that biology book, and it's all connected, right? And that's what my paper was about. The Smartest Scientist is like the one who's aware of the fact that every field of study is connected to every other field of study. It's true. It's true. It's true. It's true. All right. So, demonization, and will defend accountability for rhetoric, even by those on the same side as Kirk in broader politics, but who worry about violent escalation. Religious and cultural memory. I wrote that paper like 10 years ago, too, by the way. In Christian history, Memory is powerful. Kirk may become part of a lineage of Christian public figures whose deaths are as much about their message as the manner of their departure. Christian books, sermons, and podcasts will revisit his teachings. Memorial services will be an annual events in certain communities. Christian colleges might treat his last speeches or debates as class material. Conclusion: America at a crossroads. Kirk's death is more than the end of a life. It is a mirror held up to a polarized nation's soul. I don't need anybody to apologize to me because you're not sorry, first of all. I'm not stupid, man. You guys are so goddamn dumb. You know why you're dumb? Because you think I'm stupid. You think I'm stupid. That's why you're stupid. You ain't sorry. You're sorry you failed to kill me. Sorry you failed to lock me up for life. Sorry about a lot of things. But sorry you did it all? Fuck no. You ain't sorry. You're not sorry. Because you're going to keep doing it. See, that's the thing. If you're sorry about something, you never do it again. But when you say you're sorry, and then 5 minutes later you do it again, you ain't sorry. You're not sorry. You're a sorry piece of shit. That's for sure. That's for sure. And you can go home and feed your mamas. You can go feed your mommy and your daddy and your brother and your sister and your cousin and your brother and all of those motherfuckers. Yeah, I love that. They're not our family anyway. No, they were. But you're not their family. You know why? Because you're a fucking traitor. That's why. You're a fucking rat bastard. Kill your fucking mom. What a piece of shit, bro. Anyway, I don't care, traitor bastard. Kirk's death is blah, 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 blah. A nation is being radicalized by big media, social media activists, progressive advocates, anarchists, and secularists. The grief, criticism, debate. Oh yeah, I never get poisoned. Debates over rhetoric and responsibility. What's that? You'll be the one who decides that? No, you won't, bitch. Responsibility. All signal that America is facing a turning point. No, you don't decide anything on me, bitch. You decide nothing. You decide nothing with me, bitch. You're nothing but a bitch. You ain't nothing to me. That's because you're not. Exactly. What'd you just say? That's because. Okay, so you're acknowledging that you're nothing to me, bitch, and what you said was irrelevant. You just lying because you're retarded and stupid because you just openly admitted that the reason why I'm right is because. Okay. Alright, so you really are a fucking moron. Okay, that's what I thought. Anyway, the question becomes not just how to remember him, but what happens next, whether the country will choose to heal, restrain the poisonous edges of political discourse, protect free speech without making it a free-for-all that enables violence, and ask whether faith, politics, and culture can coexist without annihilating the empathy that underpins democracy. In death, as in life, Kirk may serve as both a warning and an inspiration. His assassination should galvanize those who shared his vision, but ultimately the measure will be whether America uses this moment to reaffirm its moral and civic foundations. As Kirk might have said, this is the moment for America to find God. Charlie Kirk timeline. Born October 14th, 1993. Died September 10th, 2025. October 14th, 1993. Charles James Charlie Kirk is born in Arlington Heights, Illinois, to Robert Kirk, an architect, and Kimberly Kirk, a mental health counselor, and grows up in Prospect Heights, Illinois, a Chicago suburb. 2008 until 2012. Attends Wheeling High School. During this time, Kirk listens to Rush Limbaugh, is active in local and school political causes, volunteers for the U.S. Senate campaign of Illinois' Republican Mark Kirk, no relation, authors an essay for Breitbart News on liberal bias in textbooks, and appears on Fox Business. At the age of 17, after graduating high school, Kirk enrolls in Harper College in Palatine, Illinois. He does not complete a degree, dropping out to focus on political activism. May 15th, 2012, at age 18, while delivering a speech at Benedict University's Youth Government Day, Kirk meets Tea Party activist Bill Montgomery, and a month later, the day after Kirk graduates from high school, they co-found Turning Point USA as a nonprofit to identify, educate, train, and organize students to promote freedom. Free market principles, limited government, and conservative values on college campuses. July 18th through the 21st of 2016, Kirk is a speaker at the Republican National Convention and meets donor Foster Frias, who provides early funding for Turning Point USA's Frias. Janina Thomas, wife of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, and Barry Russell, CEO of the Independent Petroleum Association of America, serve on the organization's advisory council. Kirk also holds Turning Point USA rally and declares his beliefs: freedom, be in control of your own life and your own destiny. I don't want Washington, D.C. to tell me how to live my life. I think states' rights matter. Washington, D.C. is full of corruption, bureaucrats, waste, inefficiency, and I think states created the federal government. The federal government did not create the states. And the beauty of individual liberty, if you decentralize the federal government, you can restore freedom back to the people, not have government rule our lives every day, and pledges, I'll be voting for Donald Trump. Kirk later assists with Donald Trump Jr.'s media and travel arrangements during the Trump presidential campaign. So if you want to remain in control of your own life, first of all, don't go to fucking jail. Don't get in trouble with the law, okay? You know what I'm saying? Like, if you get in trouble with the law and they put you on probation, now they have control to dictate that you need to report a certain place. They can restrict you from going places, put tracking devices on you and shit, put you in jails, institutions, force you to take medication over objection through court orders, and all that kind of shit. So the really good way of being free is to be good. Like, don't break the fucking law. And that really does help you along your way, you know, of remaining free. Who the fuck wants to be a slave, bro? No fucking body. Nobody wants to live their life their way and then turn around and have somebody else to tell them, no, you can't do that. You got to do it my way. Who the fuck wants it? Nobody, right? So it's true. You know what I mean? Like, in my life, there's been plenty of circumstances and situations where I'll be in like a situation and I want to fucking kill this guy, right? But I'm looking around and I'm like, Jesus Christ, man, it's like rush hour. There's like cars everywhere going all over the place and it's broad daylight. I'm like, no. So in order to like satiate my own honor and my own, like, what do you call that, confidence, and, you know, to make so I know, I mean, like, it's a little bit for me because I know that other people will have something to say. So I'll do something. And then I pay attention to it because I don't want to do something too bad, you know, and kill a guy. And then now I'm fucked, you know, because the courts aren't going to understand. Oh, you were mad? Oh, okay. Murder's okay if you're mad. No, you know, even if it was really, really justifiable, they're probably going to burn you down anyway because they have to make examples of people so that people don't copycat shit like that and think that they can get away with it if they can create the circumstances, you know. There's a lot going on, man. But I'll tell you one thing. Life, if you want to survive, use this before you use anything else. Emotions are for bitches. Emotions are for stupid people. This right here is the number one ultimate weapon of man. It's the only thing that separates human men, right, from every other animal on the planet, is our brain. And that's it. That's it. That's all that it is. Nothing else. You're not physically strong. Go beat up a fucking go beat up a polar bear. Go beat up a fully grown polar bear, right? And if you're just gonna use strength, you can't have any clothes, no weapon, no nothing. Now go kick his ass. You know, no man on Earth, no human man, I don't give a fuck. If you jack him on steroids and growth hormones, it's never gonna matter. Go fight a fucking polar bear. He's gonna fuck you in the ass, okay? And he's gonna eat you. Alright, he's only gonna fuck you to let you know that you a bitch. Alright, that's it. That's the only reason. So don't do that. But then you just kill the polar bear with this. That's it. But that doesn't grow on a tree. That comes from invention, which is this. So, anyway. Alright, where was we? Let's see. October 4th, 2016. Co-authors, time for a turning point, setting a course towards free markets and limited government for future generations. You know, there's a lot of gaslighting, a lot of antagonism, provocation. People will fuck with you. A lot of indirect statements can be made. A lot of, you know, gaslighting and shit. All that bullshit. You just sit there and watch it. And it does nothing. It's nothing. It's a bunch of fucking bitches that have no balls. That's it. That's all that it is. And it will never bother you because that's all that it is. It is ballless, gutless, heartless, spineless. It's chicken shit. It won't ever do nothing. It's just gonna constantly be a little. It's like a flea. It's like a bug. It's like crabs. Crabs, those little bugs. They crawl around on your balls, and they eat the dead skin off of your balls and shit. Crabs, Same thing. They're just little annoying bugs that crawl around your balls and hope that they can eat some dick loads that crustied up around your cock hole or something. That's it. That's what their lives are. That's it. Oh boy, I hope today's the day. I could eat some crusty sperm from around his dick, It's like a crab. A bunch of crabs on my dick. So you just paid no attention. You know what I mean? I've been doing this for a couple of grays right there, right? It's like I was born yesterday, Anyway, November 21st, 2016, Turning Point USA launches Professor Watch List, whose mission is to expose and document college professors who discriminate against conservative students and advance leftist propaganda in the classroom. That's a smart motherfucker right there. That motherfucker right there. November 14, 2017, named to Forbes 30 under 30 list in the Law of Policies and Policies category for his work with Turning Point USA. 2018, Kirk launches Turning Point USA Campus Tours program to engage students in meaningful conversations about free markets, free speech, American exceptionalism, and Constitution. They're talking about black people now. You know what I mean? This is the stupidity that I deal with. I didn't know that. I said I knew everything, but I forgot that I didn't know that. I didn't know that about black people because these aren't gray hairs. You know what these are? They're blonde because I was born yesterday. I was born yesterday, so I'm so fucking dumb. I'm the stupidest man alive. What the fuck is wrong with these people, bro? It's planet stupid people, bro. Planet of the stupid motherfuckers, bro. Human race, stupid. Stupid. That's it. Stupid. I didn't already say that I knew everything, right? No, do you know how to do that? It's like, you fucking idiots. I'm surrounded by intellectually inferior people. That's all that it is. And I just pay it no attention. I'm gonna just go back to what I'm doing and ignore it. Because it's never real. It's bullshit. It's infinity bullshit. And I don't care. I don't have time for it. It's fucking dumb. Bunch of faggot white people. Trash. Right? And I'm white. I'm not black. I'm not Latino. I'm none of that shit. I'm like Elon Musk. You know who Elon Musk is? He's a straight white person. That's it. That's what he is. Straight white male. That's what he believes in. He's like, I'm white. If you're not, fuck you. I'm straight. If you're not, fuck you. I'm a man. If you're not, fuck you. Because I probably would want to. That's me, And if you don't like that, kiss my ass, Alright, let's see. 2022. There's actually a discoloration in the page itself, the paper. Because if you look at it close enough, you can see how the paper's formed with the little pieces. There's one little piece in the paper that looks like it's got a scuff. I didn't touch the book. It's nothing. It couldn't be from me. March 22nd, 2018. Kirk attends Generation Next White House Forum and moderates a Q&A with President Donald Trump on topics such as the economy, tax reform, and opioid crisis. That's why I never talk about racism. You know why? Because the second, if I'm like, yeah, I'm white, that's what's up. The second I do that, all of the gay white motherfuckers swarm up like, ooh, can I suck your balls? I'm like, bitch, I'm not a faggot, though. Oh, then you're not really white. Go fuck yourself. That's what they do. That's why look, I know me. I'm good. I ain't worried about it, man. Fuck all this shit, bro. Fuck all of this shit. Everybody's gonna die one day anyway, right? Spending all their time worrying about my balls. Yeah. It's like, your clock is ticking, right? April 13, 2018. Kirk is told by Broward County Public Schools he will not be allowed to speak on gun rights, advocating for armed guards and gun detectors on the campus of Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in the wake of the Parkland shooting.
Good evening, Barnes & Noble shoppers. Ending currently 5
Alright, they're closing at 6. All of that stuff is just Charlie Kirk achievements. So, that was the book. I just didn't read all the achievements because they're closing in like 3 minutes. So.